Clematis that are in groups 2 and 3 can be pruned in February. This variety that I have is called Clematis Madame Julia Coravon, which is actually a group 3 clematis, which means I prune this back really hard. I prune it back to the first set of buds, which is usually at about knee height. So I take away all of this dead matter because this is a fast growing clematis that will flower prolifically throughout the summer months. Group 2 clematis don't need such a hard prune, but they do need tidying back to form a shape. If you haven't already pruned your apple and pear trees, February is a great month to do so. Just remember that you don't want to get too carried away and just take on the work that needs to be achieved. I only give mine a very light prune every year just to keep it in good shape and good health. And also remember the golden rule that in the winter months, if it's got a stone, leave it alone. Winter is not the time to be pruning your cherries, your plums, anything with a stone. Just leave it alone at this time of the year. I do have a separate video on apple tree pruning if you want to look at that for more detail. Varieties of Buddleia Davidii can be really hard pruned in February. I cut mine back to about 30 centimetres from the ground. This makes sure that I still have plenty of foliage at the base and the flowers at the top. If you leave them unpruned for too long, they can start to look a little bit tatty and not a very nice shape. So doing this just keeps them in good check. Bush and shrub roses can be pruned in February, or if you're a bit more northern you might want to wait until March if it's a particularly bad winter, until the worst of the weather has passed. These roses are actually quite newly planted, but what you mainly want to achieve is a good shape with an open centre, and the first thing that I would do is remove any dead or damaged shoots and also cut out anything that is diseased as well. If there are any really weak and spindly growths, I'll cut that right back and just generally cut back the main stems by about 2/3. When you're making your cuts, you want them to be just above an outward facing bud with the slope going away from the bud so that any water will run off and not cause any damage. If you grow any hazel, now is a good time to actually be coppicing your hazel. And what that means is cutting it right back to the ground. And what that means is you can use these very long, straight stems for building. You can make teepees out of them, you can make all sorts of supports for your plants. And the hazel will grow very quickly, so you could actually be doing this every year if you wanted to. I think I've left mine for 2 years this time, so they are quite thick at the base, but they're going to be perfect for making all sorts of structures. And you could probably also do this with things like willow as well. It's a great way to keep a more sort of natural, softer look to your plot because the supports have that really gorgeous sort of barky texture to them, and they sort of blend in with the plants, and they're not as noticeable as, you know, bamboo canes or other supports that you might have, so they quite seamlessly blend into the garden, and it's a nice sort of traditional method. It also just makes use of a natural resource, you know, you don't have to go to the shops and buy things when you can just grow it yourself and crop it for free. If you haven't already finished trimming your hedges, it must be done this month because the birds will soon be nesting and you really don't want to be disturbing them in the hedgerows. So get out there, wrap up warm and trim your hedges before all the wildlife start to make it their home. If you grow autumn fruiting raspberries, now is a good time to cut them back right to the ground if you haven't already done so. Autumn fruiting raspberries fruit on the current year's growth, so all of the stems that come up in spring will fruit this coming autumn. If you have any currant and berry bushes such as gooseberries, black currants, blueberries, these can all be pruned now, and I tackle it by, again, starting off by removing anything that's dead, that's damaged or growing inwards or rubbing against another stem. You know, that all encourages good health of the plant. And then perhaps you might want to look at the shape of the plant. Is it too congested in the centre? You want a nice sort of goblet shape. Well, I hope that's been of help to some of you. Thank you very much for watching. Happy pruning, but don't get too carried away out there, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.